Hey everyone. All right, well, this week I've officially turned 21 years old. So you know what that means. I really am going to be an alcoholic, aren't I? I hope not. Anyway, as you know, every year when it's my birthday, I do a short to just tell you all, "Hey, I'm turning this specific age." But this year, instead of doing that, what I'm going to be doing instead is a top 10 list themed around my birthday, sort of. Now, this is something I wanted to do last year when I turned 20, but last year I went for that whole I'm going to start reviewing new movies now instead of top 10s phase, and that didn't work out so well. But now I'm back to doing top 10s, so it's more fitting to do it now. We all have those movies we like to consider our childhood. We like to praise them, even. We like to say that that movie's good. Doesn't matter if you like it anymore or not. It's your childhood, so you have to like it. I guess. I don't know. We all have those movies out there that we grew up watching in ways, and I do too. I decided to put together a top 10 list based around my childhood movies. Except, here's the thing, that's kind of hard to do because there are lots of movies I saw in my childhood. So I feel like I just fill up the whole list with movies I've already talked about before. So here's what I'm going to be doing instead. For this top 10 list, I'm only focusing on movies I grew up with watching in theaters. These are the movies that I saw in theaters when I was a child, like before I became a teenager, that is. Movies I went to go see in theaters as a child, and movies that, I have seen at least more than once. For this top 10 list, I'm only focusing on my favorite childhood movies, ranked by how many times I've seen them, and I'm only going by movies that I went to go see in theaters, and basically anything that came out before 2018, because that was the year I became a teenager, and then also became obsessed with movies. So yeah, between like 2010 and 2017, any movie I saw in theaters from those years, any movie I watched more than once, whether just at home or whatever, and I'll be talking about what I remember from going to see each movie. I'll be talking about why I wanted to see them, what I thought of them at the time, and a little bit of what I think of them now. Yeah. So yeah, I will. So yeah, hopefully this will bring me a good idea to start talking more about some films that I haven't really said much about recently, or at least share some new topics that I haven't talked about with these movies before. This should be fun, right? Yeah, I'll be sharing my childhood some more. It's better than living off of booze throughout my first day of being 21. I mean, I'm sure that's fun to do, but yeah, forget it. Let's get ranking. Let's begin by talking about the sequel to Finding Nemo that people like, but don't really praise it as much as Finding Nemo, which I perfectly can understand. When Finding Dory was announced and released, I was like 10 or so, and I was a big fan of Finding Nemo. I do agree, it was a pretty amazing movie. It was visually pleasing, it had a great emotion to it, a lot of great characters. It's something that, of course, I haven't grown tired of. I still love it to this day. So when I heard about this movie, I actually was confused. Not by the plot or anything, I was just confused on what exactly the film was going to be. Is this going to be a spin off, per se, where we just see Dory or so? Is it going to be a sequel where we actually continue the adventure? Or is it going to be a prequel where we see what happened with Dory beforehand? And then I got to see the movie and was surprised to see that it was all of the above. This movie was a prequel because it opened with Dory's backstory and paid more attention with it. It was a follow up because we did follow up a new adventure with these characters and all whatever new stuff they made, meeting new characters and going to see other strange locations where in this movie Dory is captured by a aquarium run by Sigourney Weaver for some reason. And so they have to save Dory only for Nemo and Marlin to get captured as well. But Dory's okay because she meets a lot of new friends. She meets a whale or sorts, a octopus who was pretty funny in its own right, and a bunch of other characters and such. I was definitely pleased to watch this movie because, like the first one, I just was really looking forward to the visuals, the way the story continues, and just the amount of new likable characters this movie would give us. I mean, I just feel like when watching this movie, I just get so satisfied with how many lovable, fun characters there are, and how beautiful the movie looks, and just how cute the film is in general. While this movie definitely isn't better than Finding Nemo was, I actually remember thinking it was just as good as Finding Nemo, mainly just because of how cute it was. It was a really cute movie, and it still is to this day. Of course, nowadays, Finding Nemo will always be the ultimate underwater Pixar movie. But Finding Dory is still really great, and at the time, I perfectly understand why I thought it was just as great. You know, it was really cute, had great visuals, and Dory's just a really lovable character that does do well for his own movie. Alright, so the Peanuts, man, they made a lot of my childhood. If you're like me, you were obsessed with these characters growing up. I wasn't obsessed to the point where I wanted my entire room to be filled with Peanuts collection, but at the same time, I loved them, and I still love them to this day. The Christmas special, the Thanksgiving special, the Halloween special, all sorts of other specials. I watched them a lot. I enjoyed watching them. I had fun with these characters. I loved quoting them. I loved thinking about them. I was just, it was one of those things I love to quote and think about a lot. It's amazing. It's like an amazing franchise of collection of shorts, comics, cartoons, all that great stuff. So when I heard that the Peanuts were coming to the big screen, not realizing that the Peanuts have already hit the big screen with a few movies that I watched two of them, but I actually didn't realize they were actual theatrical feature films since they were animated the same way as the specials. But anyway, yeah, I heard that at the time I thought this was the very first time we would get a full length feature Peanuts movie. And I was excited because, yeah, man, I love the Peanuts. I like to see how they would translate to the big screen. I was a little skeptical when I found that it was being made by the studio behind Ice Age and was animated with this kind of visual esque. I mean, as I got to the second trailer, I really did love the get grown to loving the animation. However, when it came to the plot and again the fact that it was made by Blue Sky, I was kind of a little skeptical. I still wanted to see it. I mean, I was a huge Peanuts fan. Of course, I wasn't going to turn it down. I was just hoping that it would give me the nice sense of Peanuts vibes as opposed to Ice Age vibes. That's all I was hoping for. As a child, I was looking forward to it, but I was hoping it would feel like a Peanuts movie and not like something made by the studio that gave us a bunch of scrap content. When I saw the movie, thank God, it was great. I actually got invested with the plot. It was cute, like the cartoons. If anything, it was even more wholesome this time. This movie actually brought us some of that great everything we love about the Peanuts. The funny, enjoyable characters, the nice comic esque cartoon style, even if it's technically 3D animated, and it's just a really nice, fun, pleasing movie to watch. I watched this movie with my dad and my sister. We don't usually do that, but when we do that, it does make for a nice, cute experience, and it was this time. I actually felt nice warmth with it. It was a very wholesome movie. It did fall at first. I was thinking it's such a basic plot. Oh, boy wants to get girl or whatever. But they keep it going where things do occur. It does get serious. Okay, not someone dies serious, but it does get emotionally investing. And I was amazed to see that for a Peanuts movie. I actually was fine calling this a Peanuts movie because of how emotionally investing it was. I really was impressed by how much it felt like a Peanuts movie, as well as how much it felt like a very joyful, well put together film in general. So yeah, my childhood self was impressed. I exceeded my childhood expectations, and to this day, I do have to say it's probably the best film Blue Sky has put out. Granted, that's not saying much, especially since they're not alive anymore, but still, I think it's credit where credit is due. If you're a fan of the Peanuts like I am, then you definitely deserve to watch this movie. It is a lot better than you would think. And here is probably the only movie on this entire list that I'm going to admit I actually did not like at first. I actually remember when this movie came out and I wanted to see it. I was excited because I saw how many video game characters were in it.
I was excited because it felt like a Pixar movie when I found out that it was actually being made by Disney and not like the Pixar fan there. No, it was just another Disney animated movie. I was like, well, okay, wow, this seems interesting. A world of arcade characters coming together. That sounds like the most fun I could ever have for an animated film. I was all excited to see this all just play out and how it would go. And when I first saw it in theaters, when it came out, I will admit I actually came out not liking it. And I even remember when I saw it in theaters, I actually thought about wanting to leave the theater during the movie. I mean, as a kid, I didn't go to the theaters to see that many horrible movies, but this movie apparently made me upset somehow. I'll explain. I actually do remember why I didn't like this movie. It wasn't because of something plot relevant or something that you would say wasn't a good thing as a critic. I wasn't a critic. I was a 7-year-old. I remember I didn't like it because it didn't put enough focus on the real life video game characters. I knew that characters like Pac Man, Cuber, Sonic, or even the Mario characters were going to be in this movie. And I was all excited to see how they would interact with this Wreck It Ralph character and how much excitement would go on with all these characters and such. But then the film painted the focus on this um, fake Mario Kart sugar game. You know what I'm talking about. And because of how much focus was put onto that world, as well as the character in that world, the amount of focus that was put onto that as opposed to these other real video game characters kind of upset me. I was like, okay, so are we just not going to see Sonic or Pac Man get involved with the plot? I want my money back. That was how my 7-year-old felt about this. Then, when I gave it a second watch, not in theaters, but later when it aired on TV, about a few years later, when I gave it a second watch, I said, okay, I was being ridiculous. This is a great movie. It really is. It has a fun new story element. Like, the overall aesthetic of an arcade world where characters hang out with each other after closing time, that's honestly, I like that. I thought it was creative, and I thought it was creative at the time. I just didn't like how the story played out. But now I do think the story plays out really nicely. All the attention put on this fake video game world does create for some nice moments. Gets a nice bonding between characters. We get some fun sense of humor. I didn't get the comedy at first, but second viewing I was able to get more of it. Yeah, because my 7-year-old, hold on, I hate when that happens. Happens more than you think, honestly. Anyway, my 7-year-old self wasn't all for this comedy or whatever. I was just upset because Sonic wasn't in the movie more than I wanted him to be, or something. But by my second viewing, I was older, like 10, I think, and yeah, I did enjoy the comedy more. I thought the world was great. I thought these new characters were fun. I was just being picky about what existing characters would get attention wise, but thankfully, I realized I was being stupid. This is still a really great movie, okay? So, yeah, great movie. Yeah, definitely wasn't being very nice about it at first, but it's great. It's definitely worth a watch, you know? Just that fun video game action in a Disney movie. You'll definitely get a lot of that with this. Man. Legos. You see me talk about my Lego collection. I do. I have collected a bunch of Legos and such. Lego Batman is one of those Lego brands that I have collected a little bit of, though, truth be told, when thinking about Batman, I have to remind myself I shouldn't associate it too much with Lego. But apparently, Lego and Batman have associated each other a lot to the point where one of Batman's newest films would be a Lego one. The Lego Batman movie. Man, just hearing about this movie coming out, I was hilariously excited. I thought, oh my god, they're putting Batman on the big screen in Lego form. And just from the first teaser where they completely do all they can to satirize him, I was already loving it, okay? I just loved how, prior to the first Lego movie and how serious that one is, this one was going to be as satirical as ever. It's going to satirize a lot of Batman elements for this new story. And man, it certainly did so. Because when I was ready to see the movie, I was just all for it. I told myself, man, I'm a Batman fan and I'm a Lego fan, so this movie's probably going to have a lot for me to enjoy. And when I went to go see it, it certainly did have a lot to enjoy. I could enjoy for. It had that fun satire where it took on all sorts of crap. It sort of focused on Batman being all I'm a loner or so. It did get serious, but I will admit I actually was impressed at how well I could take the plot seriously because despite it being a satire, it also does have a new fun plot. This one show actually focusing more depth on Batman's character being one who would want to be on his own, but in this movie, it emphasizes on how he needs partners, or else he's just going to be a loner for the rest of his life, and that's not a good thing or such. So this movie emphasizes him getting Robin, Batgirl, and as well as actually putting emphasis on his relationship with the Joker. They act like a couple in this movie. It's hilarious. It was also apparently a big factor to the plot, but I like it. I do like how that went. Truth be told, Lego really did seem a great deal of these movies, though unfortunately that trend only lasted 4 films, so yeah, it's long while it lasted, I guess. But still, for the movies we did get, I think the Lego Batman movie is a pretty good example of something that I was impressed at how well I could sit through it, laughing, but also taking the plot seriously. I didn't do that with a lot of anime movies at the time. There weren't a lot of times where I would see an anime movie and I would laugh, but also get serious with the plot. But this time I did. It did a great job at balancing that stuff. If you're a fan of Batman and a fan of Lego, it's pretty easy to enjoy what this movie does. Now I remember when Inside Out came out, I will admit my expectations for it weren't really high. Inside Out was when the teaser for it came out in the trailer, I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. Emotions inside the head, all living together as beings or something controlling the body. I guess that's kind of cool. But yeah, I wasn't really all for it. At the same time, I said, all right, well, I don't know how well this is going to pull out. Mainly because this, of course, was the time when Pixar wasn't really doing their best strive as they were in the 2000s. I remember the early 2010s, after Toy Story 3, they put out stuff like Cars 2, Brave. That stuff didn't really get the right treatment or such. But Inside Out, when that was coming out, I was like, oh, okay. I don't know. Do I really want to see this? I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's just not going to be for me. Not because it's a female lead. No, that has nothing to do with it. Of course not. I don't mind the female lead. Okay, I'm going to be honest. That kind of was a factor in it. I hate to be sexist, but as a child, I did seem to have a thing with movies starring women. I wasn't against them. I did still watch them, but for Pixar, I was a little disappointed that sorry. I probably do sound really sexist right now, but that's how I was as a child, and I'm sorry. But anyway, still, when it did come out, I was asked if I wanted to see it by my father. I do remember that day when my dad asked me, do I want to see Inside Out? And I said, sure. I said, sure. Why not? All right, I'll see it. So, yeah, he took me to see Inside Out. I got out of it. I was amazed. We all were amazed. I swear. Maybe I was the only one who had low expectations for it, but then they exceeded to the roof. But man, I remember when I saw the movie, I could not handle how amazing the comedy was, how amazing the animation was, how great the emotions were. Like the emotional moments in the movie actually got to me. I was about walking into the auditorium thinking, all right, let's see what this Pixar movie has to offer. And coming out of it, I was like, man, I feel like I'm just going to think about this movie for a while now. I really do like what this did. It is creative in all sorts of ways. It's probably one of Pixar's best. It really is one of Pixar's best, actually. A lot of people say it is their best. I mean, I wouldn't go that far in my opinion, but I still think that this was probably the biggest surprise for me for a Pixar movie. I wasn't expecting much out of it. I thought it was going to be nothing more than a basic movie that probably wasn't for me. But it really was for me. I was impressed at how it was for a lot of people. I knew a lot of people I knew would really like this movie. Not even knowing what their interest was. I feel like this was a movie that anyone could like. So the fact that I was able to come out of it and think that it's something anyone should watch does say a lot about it. It's a masterpiece of sorts. And I know what you're thinking. Why is such a masterpiece at number 6? Well, like I said, I'm ranking this list based off of how many times I saw these movies as a child. And for Inside Out, I I only watched it like 3 times, I think. Yeah, I only saw it like 3 times. And not be and I know what you're thinking. For a movie so great, why would I only watch it so much? Well, you see, I'm one of those kids who doesn't really I don't rewatch stuff based off of how much I love them. It's more so just based off of convenience. Like the right time comes. Like if I rewatch it at this moment or this not. So yeah, I didn't watch it so little because I didn't care for it. No, it was just because of the time being such. I did think it was an amazing movie as a child. I promise. All right, well, nowadays, if you're a Star Wars fan, you don't want to talk positively about this movie. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and not act like a bratty Star Wars fan who whines, and instead just talk about my 10-year-old self when this movie came out. I remember the hype for it, man. I remember this was actually the year I got into Star Wars. 2015. Early that year, I was kind of Star Wars fanish, I guess. I mean, not much though. I think my only enjoyment with Star Wars during the beginning of that year was with the merchandise. I only knew Star Wars based off of what toys, what posters, or whatever there was. I wasn't entirely for it story plot wise or such, movies wise. But then later that year, I found out that there was another one coming out. When I found out that there was actually another Star Wars movie coming out, at first when I saw announcement for it, I thought, "Oh, okay, a Star Wars movie. What is this?" And then later on, I realized, "Oh my God, another Star Wars adventure. Oh my, okay, well, I better go see it." But man, I need to do something. I am not caught up with Star Wars. I only watched a few bits of some of the movies. And even then, it wasn't really enough for me story wise. I remember my dad tried showing me the movies, and I was just like, oh, when is comedy coming in or something? Why is it animated? But when this movie was announced, I knew, all right, well, if I do want to become a Star Wars fan, I better do it right. So I checked out all 6 movies that I was lucky to have on DVD thanks to my dad. And I even got a book. I remember my aunt, shout out to my aunt, she gave me a book that actually chronologued all 6 movies and explained them fondly. So I was able to understand what the names of all the characters, ships, and plot elements were. So I can thank her for helping me get more invested and interested in Star Wars and learning more about it. I learned a lot from it from that book. And then I watched the movies, and boy, they were some exciting ones. All 6 movies had a great story esque to them. I do remember really getting invested to it, and by the end of the year, Star Wars became my number 1 all-time favorite franchise. And when I finally got ready to see this movie, boy was I ready. I couldn't have been more ready then. So I actually remember there was a line. It was the first time I went to a movie theater and there was actually a line to get in the theater. That was impressive for me. That showed how big Star Wars was. So I waited in line. I was able to we got our seats. I was ready to sit through Star Wars. Came out thinking that it was just as great as some of the great ones. Of course, my childhood self said that the movie was so great, it was just as great as something like Empire Strikes Back. That's what I said, my 10-year-old self or such. Even after rewatching it a few times, I still stand by it was that great of a movie. I still had no problem ranking it that high. I mean, Empire Strikes Back tops it, but after a few rewatches as a child, I still thought it was amazing. All right, so what do I think of it now? I still think it's amazing. All right, yep. You're hearing a Star Wars fan who still has a huge love for this franchise say that The Force Awakens may not be perfect. Yeah, the original trilogy is better, but I still think the movie is pretty great. I think it's got great action, great story elements, a great new set of characters. I do think it's handled greatly.
I know the sequel trilogy hate is fun as a Star Wars fan, but for this list, I'm talking about how I enjoyed these movies when I first saw them. And if a lot of you are going to comment, man, I feel bad for you having to wait so long, getting so excited for something so crappy. Shut up. I didn't think it was crappy. I loved it. Yeah. I don't care if you want to think it's crappy. I'm sorry. No. I think my excitement was worth it because I was amazed with it. There was lots of fun going on with it. It was a fun experience. I don't care. You can tell me that the experience wasn't fun because it was a crappy movie, because it wasn't. Or at least not to me. Alright, you know what? I'm going to do a Star Wars ranking again soon, so I'll save my talks about Star Wars for then. For now, accept the fact that I had a lot of fun that year with this movie's release. Okay, so I'm putting Despicable Me 2 over. Remember, this list is ranked off of how many times I watched these movies as a child. But still, even then, yeah, man, I don't know, man. This is like, yeah. I watched Despicable Me 2 a number of times. It's kind of embarrassing to think about, but look, here's the thing. When this movie first came out in theaters, I remember the first movie fine, I guess. And unfortunately, I know this is a sad thing, but I was mostly familiar with the Minions. They were the characters I remember from that movie the most. And yeah, when I heard about a sequel coming out, I was like, okay, alright, a nice fun sequel. That should be a fun time in theaters. I thought of it as just one of those fun new theater experiences. Like, just every once in a while a new animated movie comes out. My mom or dad wants to take me to see it, and I'm like, alright, sure, I'll have fun seeing it. I just thought of it as a fun time at the movie theaters. And yeah, that's kind of what it was. And then after coming out, I do think that it was really funny. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was more exciting than the first one. I thought it was better than the first one. So when it came out to download, I think this might actually have been one of the very first movies I watched via streaming. Well, not streaming, more like online downloading. I downloaded the movie on my tablet and watched it a number of times. I guess it just was one of those movies that I had so much fun rewatching over and over. It was like such a comfort movie, I guess. One of those movies I comfort to, I laughed to, I thought was funny, I thought was beautifully animated, had a nice, simple story to it. If I'm being honest, though, to this day, I still think it's great. I actually do still think Despicable Me 2 is better than the first one. It actually is really funny. And it's not even just the Minions that are funny. Yeah, they do have a lot of comedy, but this movie actually does provide great comedy with some of the other characters. I think that's one of the best elements with the Despicable Me films, how it's able to give us great comedy, not just coming from the Minions. And I will admit, looking back, after Despicable Me 2, these movies did start getting a lot more money. Why? I think this was the last time a Despicable Me film actually had efforts put into it and not mostly relying on these minions taking up too much space. There are a lot of minions, and yes, they are a big factor with the film, but at least there's a point in the plot. At least they serve a purpose other than comic relief. Afterwards, I got a spin-off and the Fern movie and such, and honestly, I don't think all those movies are bad. It's pretty easy to tell that they're more focused on giving these yellow fellas enough screen time to make money and get more kids rolling in. And it's unfortunate that I am part of the problem. Because I did go to theaters to see Minions. I did go to theaters to see Despicable Me 3. I did think both movies were fun to watch. I was one who thought Minions was hilarious too, man. I'm sorry. I know I'm one of the main reasons these movies are happening and why the Minions keep coming out, but unfortunately my childhood self just loved the Minions, thought they were funny. And unfortunately, other people in my family thought they were funny. It's a sad thing, but, it happens to white guys. I'm sorry. Let's move on. Oh, man, I have wanted to talk about these fellas for so long on this channel, and now I finally get the chance to. The Muppets, man, they are delight. They have had so many great times on cinema, and I have so many fond memories of them. But I do also have a great history with them. I actually do remember in 2011, when this movie was announced, well, not I didn't really take the announcement. It actually came out of nowhere. I saw there was a random movie, comedy, family comedy that came out in theaters earlier that year. I went to go see with my family, and a teaser for this movie came up, and I was like, "Oh God, the Muppets! They're coming to theaters again. This is a lot to take in." But I actually do remember. Apparently, while I did watch some bits of the Muppets, I'm gonna actually confess I was a little bit scared of them. All right, let me rephrase that. I wasn't scared of everything about the Muppets, but I actually do remember having a bit of a phobia with these characters. I watched a lot of Sesame Street. Even then, there were moments on that show that kind of creeped me out. It's just with the Muppets, I there were a bit of moments on the Muppet Show, and as well as some of the Muppet movies I saw. It wasn't all of it, but there were bits of it that kind of creeped me out. I don't know. It's just maybe the puppets' designs or such, or just the aesthetic of these characters, how they talk or whatever. It kind of creeped me out. I had a little bit of a creep. I was a little creeped out with them, sort of. I hate to admit, but yeah, I kind of was. So when this teaser first came out, I thought, oh god, my phobia is coming back. Oh no. But then afterwards, I realized, all right, you know what? I think these Muppets are awesome. I'm scared of them, but they're awesome. I gotta get more into them. So I started getting rid of my phobia, watching more trailers of this, actually becoming more and more invested with them, actually finding them to be funny, watching more content of the Muppets, more of their movies, even some of their YouTube videos they were pulling out at the time. I adored it all. I adored the Muppets so much before the movie's release. I did my best to become a diehard Muppet fan. So by the time the movie came out, I'm like, I'm ready. It's one of those films that did that, a couple of those. So when I actually went to go see the movie with the family, I came out, of course, loving it because it gave me my love for the Muppets like everyone else had. I loved it so much, like all the other Muppet movies. I bought it on DVD. Well, I actually didn't buy it. I got it on DVD. Someone gave it to us for Christmas or whatever. But yeah, we got it on DVD, and I, of course, tuned in and watched a lot of it because, of course, it was just so rewatchable for me. These Muppet characters grew on me. I can thank this movie for telling me that I had nothing to be scared of with these fellas. This movie told me that my fear of the Muppets was done. It told me that I shouldn't be scared of them because they're awesome. So I can thank this movie for having a fun plot involving them actually joining together to save the studio or whatever. Actually referencing the fact that they have been lost media for the past 10 years. This movie acknowledges their departure in cinema and brings them back with acknowledgement of that, them all getting back together as such. And I was able to actually get invested to it because before then I would have just said, oh god, these Muppets are creepy. But now I was able to be all interested in it and actually excited to see what would go down. So I can thank this movie for telling me that the Muppets are not something I should be scared of, but impressed with because they're awesome. In fact, I think the Muppets are so awesome, I might actually even do another list involving them. I think at some point I actually am going to make a top 10 list based around the Muppets because there's just so much fun about them. I would have so much fun talking about them more. And here's a movie that got me into something. A lot of these movies I talked about were films that I had to get into before watching. This movie I got into after watching, sort of, in a way. Beforehand, I did like playing with Legos, but not to the extent. I wasn't the die-hard Lego fan that I am today. I was mostly just playing with this box of bricks, and I was just like, click, clack. I saw it as just a basic toy. One of those basic toys I would play with on board or whatever. And it didn't really stick out to me of anything special. It was just a basic toy that I kind of just played with whenever I felt like it or whatever. But I did still play with them enough. So when the movie was announced to come out, I was like, okay, Legos. I do play with Legos. So I should be interested in seeing this movie. And I remember, and of course, a lot of us saw this as a cash grab film, but I was a child and I was used to seeing those kind of movies on the big screen. So, of course, I just thought of it as a simple theater experience. Wasn't really planning on getting much out of it. I just thought going to see it would just be one of those basic experiences where there's nothing really that excites me. I just go see it, have a good laugh for it, and then come out of it being like, okay, that was fun. Time to go home. That's all I really thought about it because I thought it was just gonna be a predictable plot with some silly comedy, predictable stuff or whatever, nice bit of animation or whatever, just the basic kind of films I was used to enjoy watching. And then it came out, and it was amazing how unpredictable it was. Yeah, man, a lot of us were impressed with how much this movie surprised us. It blew me away with how awesome the animation was, how great the comedy was. I knew I was going to get a laugh, but the amount of laughs I did get in this movie were still surprising to me. And of course, the plots really was more incredible than I expected. I did not expect such an unpredictable plot to go down. I was amazed with that. And after this movie came out, I was in the mood to watch it a few more times later on. That same year this movie came out, later on I got to go to Legoland to kind of get me more into Legos or whatever. But still, I wasn't entirely obsessed yet. I loved the Lego movie and I still had an enjoyment with Legos. I just wasn't as diehard with it. Eventually, though, when I gave this movie another rewatch, I actually became ready to play with Legos. After a few rewatches, I was like, hey, you know what, man? I think I'm going to go ahead and play with some Legos. So I did, and now I collect Legos 24/7. I think the Lego movie might be one of the main reasons I became a diehard Lego fan. I mean, obviously, it didn't get to me like that at first, but I did get a lot of influence with how I wanted to build stuff or what I wanted to build from this movie. This movie did kind of show me, how fun it is to build and how Legos are an amazing product line of toys. At first, I thought it was just one of those basic average toys, but after watching this movie a few times, boy, let me tell you, I am all for Legos now. You see my collection. I got a lot. So yeah, first seeing this movie, was amazed at how it surprised me with its unexpected comedy and plot and just unexpected nonsense going around everywhere. I was impressed that my father loved it too. I thought he was just going to see it as a random experience, but no, he also loved it. So yeah, knowing that my father loved something like that really did say something about this movie. Yes, okay, Toy Story. I've talked about Toy Story a bunch of times before. I might as well go ahead and bring up my experience with this movie, Toy Story 3. When this movie came out, I actually didn't necessarily get interested in Toy Story franchise because I knew this movie was coming out. I didn't know this movie was coming out until after I bought the Toy Story movies on DVD. I remember one day my mom took me to Blockbuster. Remember that place? Oh, God. Man. Anyway, yeah. Went there. I saw the Toy Story movies on DVD, and I'm like, oh, okay, these look cute. I heard my friends talking about something like this. I might give it a watch. So I went ahead and gave it a watch. And when I saw the first one, I was like, oh, man, dude, I cannot explain how much fun I had with that. Let's watch the second one. Oh, man, I can't tell you how much fun I had with that one, too. I'm going to watch the first one again. All right, now the second one again. I just watched them again and again. I mean, I've done that with a lot of movies, but for Toy Story, I think I've watched them more and more times than any other film. I watched them both movies back to back so many times and such. I was more than prepared to see the third one. So when the third one finally did come out, I went to go see it with the family. And after coming out, I was overwhelmed. Yeah, I don't remember me actually getting an opinion. I just remember being so overwhelmed and kind of terrified with the movie. It was exciting. It was incredibly insane. It was an insane movie. It had crazy stuff going down with it. It had a lot of creepy stuff to it too that I actually didn't want to rewatch it. Funny enough, this movie kind of creeped me out. Okay, if I'm being honest, that one scene involving the monkey probably was the main reason. I didn't want to rewatch this movie anymore. That monkey scene terrified the hell out of me. I didn't want to rewatch this movie anymore because of it. So for the past few months, I just skipped rewatching the movie. It's actually been a good 2 years of me just not wanting to watch it again. But then eventually I realized all right, I think I do want to rewatch Toy Story 3 now. I've seen the first two movies so many times. I do want to check the third movie out some more times. So I grew out of my fear and got more to the plot, and boy, it is an awesome movie. I said it before, man. The action's incredible. The all the new characters introduced, they provide for such a crazy adventure. This is such a crazy movie to invite. Just a crazy experience. You got all this stuff going down: comedy, action, drama, all of it tied together, and probably my what has been my all-time favorite animated movie, and still is. I really was invested with it. I didn't remember having much to think about when I first saw it in theaters because I was only like 4 years old. And I was just overwhelmed with how eventful it was and how scary some of it was. It was a crazy movie to rewatch more and more times. And to this day, it is still my favorite of the franchise and my favorite animated movie of all time. So before I finish up, though, I also want to say if a lot of people who do love this movie just as much like to comment on how it deserves to be the final chapter of the franchise. I mentioned before in my last video when talking about the fifth one that just came out, I accept this movie as a continuation. Honestly, I think the idea of this continuing the franchise as opposed to ending it makes it even better. It shows us that you don't need to have this much emotion. I mean, it didn't need to be this emotional at the end, but it was. Because it knew that we were ready for more excitement. If we're going to see more of these movies, we got to see how much bigger things should occur. So yeah, in my opinion, I didn't mind at all of this being a continuation. At the time, of course, I was cool seeing more movies. And to this day, I'm fine with it. Granted, I'm not the child anymore, so I can't really rewatch them as much with my childhood innocence and such. So I guess in terms of my childhood, maybe this would have worked better as a trilogy. But aside from that, I think I'm perfectly fine seeing more of these movies. These characters are still active in their parts. We still got the same methods that work to the advantage. So, while the ending of this movie was super emotional, it didn't completely wrap everything up. I had no problem seeing more movies after this, and I still don't have a problem with it. I know a lot of people do, but not me. I accept Toy Story even if there are a lot more movies than there should be.